Thanks again to the AVCA and the IBVCA for hosting this awesome Beach Ace session. These educational offerings have been designed to keep you coaches up to date with the latest information from across the world and also in a knowledge sharing format. Welcome to everyone who's taken time out of their day today to join us. We have coaches from college programs, junior coaches, Olympic coaches, and World Tour coaches from all over the world. I'm Megan Bergdorf, founder of Beach Volleyball Consulting, and I am pleased to host today's masterclass on offensive strategies. As always, guests, you can enter your questions in the chat box below at any time. I'd like to introduce you to today's presenter, Victor Ampeloff, the former head coach of the Dutch national team. He has 4 major concepts to share and foundations of offensive strategies. Turning it over to you, Victor.
Thanks, Megan, and thanks, Becca. Hi, everybody, again. This offensive strategy webinar, it was supposed to be a part of the defensive strategy seminar that we did about a month ago, but we ran out of time. But that's okay. It was an interesting discussion. So this is a continuation of that. Great to see you all back. Just a couple of things before I start. The video of offensive strategies, just like defensive strategy, was recorded in Dutch. Okay, so that means that the sound is not that important for you guys. So I'll turn the sound down. I will be pausing the video quite often and talking over the top of it, so be patient. I can imagine for some people it might be a bit frustrating, but that's part of it. And also acknowledge that this is just a seed of thought. This is not the truth. This is just a way of looking at offensive tactics, you could call it, or strategy. And I use it as a sort of foundation to help people to form their own strategies from this. Okay, so and I really should also pay credit to Steve Anderson, who put the seed in my head about 100 years ago, and I grew it in my own direction. Okay, let's do this. Show my screen. Okay, looks good. So I'm just going to play. For those of you that went on last time, this is the National Training Center in the Netherlands, just for your information. Let's get straight to it. All right. So I'm going to play it. I listen to it, and then I'll translate it effectively. Okay. Okay. So, of the 4 systems, the first system we call, or I call, open the court, and this is the way beach volleyball has always been played. So it's not new to any of you, okay? But I gave it a name. Very common system, and it's also good to be able to see how it works actually. Okay, open the court. Okay, so in the open the court system, the idea is to, sorry guys. Okay, open the court system is we're pulling the blocker to the antenna. Okay, so we're making the diagonal as big as possible for the attacking player. And the foundation of open the court system is that the sharp angle ball is long. Is the distance of the sharp angle ball is as much as possible. Okay. So what I'm saying here is that diagonal is becoming as big as possible. So what it means is pull the blocker to the line. That means that I have 3 hard balls in the angle. I have the middle attack. I have what I call the neutral diagonal, which is to the corner of the court, and then I have the sharp angle. So effectively, if it's a hard ball, the defender has to be on those 3 balls, one of those 3 balls. So that gives the feeling, at least, for the defender that the angle is big because I've pulled the blocker to the line. Okay, important to know that when you pull the blocker to the line, of course, the blocker can also block diagonal for sure. if the blocker tries to block the sharp angle, then they are jumping a long way away from the line, and it leaves the line open for you to score with the hard ball in the line. Logical. I know it's not news. I will just keep going.
Victor, if you can turn that volume down just a notch,
Yep.
a tiny bit of feedback.
Is it better?
Yep.
Okay, so we had Jasper there, he just hit a sharp angle. So here I'm sitting on the sharp angle now, and what it says there in Dutch, it says that that's the max, that's a large distance. If the attacker shows me that they are able to hit the sharp angle, then consciously or subconsciously, I'm interested in the sharp angle. Okay, so I'm going over there trying to defend the sharp angle. Okay, and then that means that the line shot is open for the attacker. Okay, so that's also one of the foundations of the open the court system. So I just said we use both those shots, the sharp angle and the line shot, in combination to challenge the defender. And that's effectively what this says in Dutch. Remember, you can take screenshots if you want, and maybe use a Google Translate later on to translate that if you want. Really basic system. If played well, and it's used a lot still in the World Tour. And I know that when I'm coaching young teams myself, I'm almost fanatical about the sharp angle. Yeah, because when you show the sharp angle, the court is just becoming bigger. If you're only able to hit neutral angle, which is to the corner of the court, then effectively the court is only 50% of the size. Okay, so yeah, I just can't repeat it enough. Sharp angle, sharp angle, sharp angle, in combination with neutral angle hard ball, middle hard ball, and line shot. Megan, do you have a question? Does anyone else have a question on that first?
Talking about the offensive, the set coming in and tempo sets and what that looks like with athletes kicking out. Can you talk about some of your experience from a junior or a more beginner level to the intermediate, collegiate, into that pro level, and what that looks like coming in to hit that shot?
So your question was, how does this, what kind of set are we using in that situation?
Yeah.
Yeah. So later on in the third offensive system, we're going to talk about fast sets. But in my experience, a fast horizontal tempo set to the outside is much more difficult to hit to sharp angle. So a ball that has an apex on it that's going up and down. So what we call traditional beach volleyball setting is that you pass the ball pretty much straight in front of you, and the setter comes to your side, and they set pretty much an up and down ball that has an apex and is falling vertically. Okay. In my experience, that ball is his easiest ball to hit sharp angle. And remember, the sharp angle it's not a bomb. The sharp angle is what I call the 70% sharp angle. It's not a shot, it's not a bomb, but it's a fast ball. Okay, so the open the court system is used in the foundation theory with a pass that goes pretty much straight. So it doesn't go even necessarily to position 3, which is middle front. It just goes pretty much straight in front of you. And the distance between the setter and the attacker is only about 2 meters or 2.5 meters. Okay, so let's just agree to call that an up and down set. Any more questions on the basic open the court system? One thing I do want to add then is that if this system is not played at the antenna, if you say you want to play this 2 meters inside the antenna, the attacker is effectively becoming smaller. So what that means is that for smaller players, the sharp angle distance is getting less, and that means the risk of hitting the ball out or hitting the ball in the top of the tape is getting higher. For very tall athletes or very athletic players who it doesn't matter if they're 2 meters inside the antenna, they can still hit the sharp angle, fine. Then you don't need to play the ball on the antenna. Okay, but for most humans, putting the ball right out near the antenna enables a long distance on the sharp angle. Of course, the risk is the ball goes too far past the antenna and then you're not able to score to the line. Okay, so there are strengths and weaknesses to all of these systems. Okay, also important to be aware of.
So if you're looking ideally within 1 meter or 3 feet from the antenna is the destination.
Yeah, plus or minus, yeah, exactly. Getting the blocker away from the angle, getting them out of the court right onto the line to try to defend that line. And as soon as they get into the sharp angle, then I bomb line, basically.
Do you notice any learning tendencies between hitting from the right side and switching to the left side, let's say from a right-handed player? Any different cues that you focus on?
Yeah, I have pretty much only one, and that is that on the left side, the way I see it is that actually when I come into approach, my chest is facing sharp angle. So in actual fact, the sharp angle ball is almost a straight hit, and then everything else is across my body, for example. Okay, and from the right side, chest is facing middle back if you're a right-handed player. Yeah, so the chest is not facing sharp angle when you're a right-handed player on the right side to hit sharp angle. It's facing middle back, or what we would call position 6 in indoor. That's as a starting point, but of course, then you get the players who hit fantastically out of their shoulder. So, for example, a right-handed player on the left side of the court might be fine facing position 6 when they run in, when they approach, and hitting out of their shoulder to hit sharp angle. So just be careful. There are no rules, but we have to understand how can we get the specific individual, the athlete, to be able to execute. And we need to know that there are 2 or 3 ways to do it. If you go and say, no, Victor said you have to be facing sharp angle if you're on the left side, and that's the way it has to be, that's ridiculous. But I know if my preference was face the sharp angle and then go across your body to go to the line. Okay, but doesn't have to be that way. If you're a good out of shoulder hitter, you might be facing more middle and hitting out of your shoulder to hit the sharp angle. And on the right side, you might be facing sharp angle and hitting out of your shoulder. When I say out of your shoulder, I mean away from your body. There's hitting away from your body and there's hitting across your body. Is facing the sharp angle and hitting to the line out of your shoulder. Okay. No more questions on that one.
Those line shots, Victor,
yeah,
not at the same 100% speed as the sharp angle. Is that
no, it's a shot because there's a block. There's a shot. So there's the 70%. When I talk about a 70% power ball, that's going down. There's no shape in that shot. Yeah. The line shot in this situation has to clear the block. So it's a shot.
I call them a shit.
70% hard ball is not a shot. It has no shape. It's just going down.
Awesome.
Okay, so, and of course, people want to bomb the sharp angle. It doesn't have to be 70%. It can be 170%. I don't really mind. But in the court system, you should be able to reproduce that easily, almost with your eyes closed, to be honest.
Just to remind everyone who's watching in, you're not going to hear the video because it's in Dutch. Victor plays it so he can hear it himself, and then he'll repeat it back in English for you guys. So you're not missing any cues from the video sound. Okay, awesome. So moving on to the second foundation.
Yep. So moving on to the second one, which is doesn't get used that much, but it's a really, really, really effective. I think it's really effective. It's called the chip system. Let's just play the video so I can. Okay, so the chip system is executed. All of the sets, Megan, can you see my cursor, the arrow?
Yep. Yep.
Okay, so all of the sets are played, let's just say to be precise, exactly in the middle of the net at 4 meters. So we have Jasper Bouter here on the left side. So he has to pass the ball further than position 3, so that when Ruben makes the set, it lands on 4 meters. Okay, and 4 meters means that this shot, this chip shot to the, that would be to Jasper's left, and this one is the same distance. Okay, and actually it's quite long. It's more than 4 meters. I guess it's 4.5 meters on the diagonal. Okay, so the set ends in the middle of the court in the chip system. The blocker stands in front of the attacker, blocks, and the attacker plays a shot to here, left, or a shot right, and can power the ball to the, let's get rid of this thing, can power the ball to either of the corners. So in this case, this one would be a line power for Jasper, and this one over here would be a diagonal power. But they can also be shots. I've also seen the chip system executed with only using shots and no power, but it means that this ball here is what they call a jumbo or an arc shot. Okay, and this is a normal line shot. But what it does effectively, this system, is it makes the defender need to move to all four corners of the court, or what I call in 2 dimensions. Normally speaking, when the blocker is blocking outside on the line, the defender patrols from the cut shot in an arc to the line shot. So they're only moving side to side effectively. When you add a chip shot, the defender now has to move side to side and forwards and backwards. So if you say that becomes a lot more complex for the defender, that's one of the advantages to the chip system. But the other advantage to the chip system, and it's also the other name that I use for the chip system, is called beat the blocker. So actually I put the blocker in front of me and I only play chip shots that are a long way away from the defender, and that actually the blocker should be trying to get interested in defending. And if you have a blocker who is what I would call immobile, immobile is not the right word, let's just call it slow, or not agile, so they don't have the ability to land and drop and dig this shot, it's a perfect option. Okay, and I use this option when it's a very good defender. I know that they can defend a hard ball, defend shots, so I stay away from the playing the ball in the direction of the defender, and I try to beat the blocker with these chip shots. That's the foundation of the chip shot system. I'm going to let the video play out a little bit more because there's another part to it. We'll just give you some examples here. Jasper passing the ball to 4 meters, jumping and playing a small chip shot back. And this is the other one. Okay.
Victor, can you play those again just because they're a little bit slow in loading?
Just want to go back to this one. Watch Jasper here when he passes and he straightens up. Okay. Jumps to the middle, set goes up and down, chip. Okay. Okay, powering the ball angle to the corner, powering the ball to the line. What we don't have in this demonstration is the attacker making only shots to the deep corners. Okay, so just remember that it's possible if you have players that can execute this, to use four corners as shots. Okay, I mean, eventually an athletic defender will get there, but just so you know, it can be used with four shots. I'm gonna keep on going. Okay, I'm just going to go back. Okay, so what I'm saying here is, so I'm blocking Jasper. He's playing the chip shot system, which is on 4 meters in the middle of the court. He plays 2 chip shots to the left side. Eventually, as a blocker, I'm going to start going over there and trying to block that chip shot. Okay, so if Jasper plays a chip shot and the blocker touches that ball, that's the first signal to Jasper that middle back is open. So the last part of the chip system is what we call the tram tracks. And the tram track, you're going to watch Jasper now, he's going to hit the ball from middle to middle because he already knows that the blocker has touched a chip shot, and that means is not actually blocking in the middle. I mean, you're making some assumptions. Of course, a blocker could block middle, but we've sowed the seed in the head of the blocker that I'm playing chip shots, or that Jasper's playing chip shots, and now the middle is open, the tram tracks. So watch Jasper now, he'll bang the ball to the middle, down the tram tracks. Rick jumps away, and yet there's no one home. And what happens after this, for example, is the blocker goes, oh, hang on, now I have to block the middle. He goes back to the middle, and then Jasper plays a chip shot back to the line. So if this is executed well, even if the blocker knows what's happening, it can be very difficult to defend. And yeah, it's I love it.
In your experience, how often is a set out of the middle and this strategy used during a match? Roughly. I won't hold you to it.
You mean internationally?
Yeah.
Internationally, Jesus, who uses a chip shot in the men's game? Not so much. I would say, God, you're testing me now. Who would use this? I've seen it more in the youth, and I know that, for example, Swiss guy's name, playing one king of the court, Florian, last name.
Anyone?
The Swiss team, yeah. Anyway, Flo and Marco, they won king of the court in Utrecht. When they were youth players playing under 21 world championships, this is a system that they used a lot. I remember in a particular match, we were allowed to coach on the side from the box in the youth, and I said to the blocker on our team, I said, all you need to do is make sure you can defend one of those chip shots. So just do a half jump in the middle and then just go and block a chip shot. When you take away one of these chip shots, it becomes a lot more difficult for the attacker. But I would say that this is more suited for the women's game now, to be honest, than the men's game, because the men actually, it's much easier. If you look at someone like Anders Mol, he can jump on your power ball and then throw your chip shot back at the same time. So when you're getting at that level of athleticism, you're reaching the limitation of this system. So I'm not going to sit here and say that internationally, at the international level in the men's game, that this is used very often. But remember that it's not about staying in one system when you're playing. This is how I see it, is that I can lead with one system until the defense gets a grip on my system, and then I switch to the next one, and then I survive another 5 or 6 points until I get a grip on that system, and then I change again. That's actually the way I see the game of beach volleyball, is the core of all of these things is called destabilization. And every good team can find a pattern in a system. Okay, and so that's when you need to have the knowledge to be able to switch to something else to destabilize your defense. That was getting a little bit philosophical, but anyway. Tram tracks. Okay, so are there any more questions about the chip system? Chip system can also be run behind. So you can run a back set in the middle and still run the chip system.
I think just taking it one step backwards, Victor, for those coaches that are teaching this concept, maybe for the first time or working with their athletes on actually offensively hitting those shots, do you have any tendencies or you know, things?
So in terms of the chip shot technique, and this is going a little bit of a sidetrack now, a little bit more to the technical consequences of playing the chip shot system, is that there's this thing that I call the half swing in beach volleyball. And the half swing is that I go to the ball and I try to contact the ball as high as possible. And it means I don't have a very big backswing. So I'm sacrificing power, but in beach volleyball, power is not that important as much as angles and making the court big. In the chip system, the ball goes up and down. I want to go to the ball. I think you guys can see the video. I go to the ball almost with a straight arm. All right. And I'm just redirecting the energy of the chip shot. If I bring my arm down like this and go back to the chip shot, the ball, I'm giving the ball more energy and the chip shot's going higher. And if the chip shot goes higher, the defender has more time. If I can keep my arm straight, and I only redirect the chip shot and it falls off my hand, okay? So it spends very little time in the air. And remember that the less time that the ball spends in the air, the less time your opponent has to get to the ball. But it means that if I want to hit the tram tracks, that I need to be able to accelerate the ball from this high point like so, but that's only half of the swing. I'm not using the backswing. So I call it the half swing. It's about contacting the ball high. It's about not putting any additional energy into the chip shot, but still having the ability to power to the tram tracks. And the power ball will not be really hard, but it will be at least 70%, and there's no one home there anyway. Because most of the time, 95% of the time, there's no one when the ball is coming through the middle that defends also middle. I've actually never seen it. But if you do it 3 times in a row, of course, the defender is going to stand in the middle to defend that ball.
Awesome. There is a quick
it all makes sense in my world. So
no, it's great. One of our viewers were asking if you have this in a PDF anywhere or on a website or something like that. These different strategies.
PDF?
Mm-hmm. Like handout.
No, I don't. That's why I'm doing this video. You mean writing this up in words?
Hang on one sec.
Gosh, I had to write a book about that. No, I don't. Sure.
We do have a question. Is it still worth it to run middle if the pass makes the middle set more complex?
Yeah, at the end of this, we talk about the on-2 system, the jump set. Normally speaking, at a certain level, we want to make sure we can repeat these things, okay? And that the execution, the level of execution is high. And if we say, hey, we shouldn't be doing things that puts pressure on the execution. So for example, the pass is crap. So the pass is all the way, for example, to this antenna. Am I still going to try to push the set all the way to the middle just because we're running the chip system? There's give and take. So that's when you have to make decisions yourself and say, are we good enough to keep going with the play? Okay, because eventually, if you want to, in the next 2 systems that I'll show you, they're all adding risk to the setting situation. But if you're not prepared to take the step and you only stay safe and you say, hey, the pass was crap, we're not running our play, then I think you're not prepared to practice it enough, because all of these things require a lot of practice to perfect them. And eventually you have to be able to execute them under pressure. And that's the definition of a skill. And it's different to a technique. A technique can be produced without pressure. A skill can be produced under pressure.
I guess adding on to that question, is there a more ideal past location to execute this effectively when you're learning it or starting to implement it?
Yeah, because of the parabolic motion trajectory of the ball, it's see where Ruben's standing now. If you guys can see that, Ruben is standing in effectively position 2-3. Yeah, between 2 and 3. And he sets the ball up and down because we want a vertical set. And the vertical set, a set that's dropping vertically, that is relatively close to the net, because you want, if the set has to be close to the net here, because you want the blocker to think they have a chance to block it. This chip system play is not run from a set that's 1.5 meters from the net. Okay. The ideal position is here between 2 and 3. If Ruben was running it, his perfect pass would be to position between position 3 and 4. And so Ruben would be getting the ball in the middle. So this is a precise location between 2 and 3 and 3 and 4. Even if it's a back set, it's the same. And to be honest with you, if you wanted to perfect this one, that's where you need to pass the ball. If you pass the ball over to the sideline and you still want to run this system, the set has to be a horizontal set, which is much more difficult to run to play a chip shot. So the answer to the question is yes, it's a specific location.
Awesome, thank you. Okay, if there's no more questions for the second strategy or foundation of offensive tactics, we'll go to the third.
Okay. All right, let's keep going then. I think we're going to touch summary here. Okay, to number 3, we call this, well, I call this spreading the block. And this is a little closer to indoor volleyball. The part of beach volleyball that I never understood is, why do we give our opponent, the blocker, our opponent blocker, so much time to stand in front of us? When in indoor volleyball, the whole objective is to get a one block or a no block situation. So we miss something in the evolution of beach volleyball, where we serve the ball to that guy and we know that he's going to attack from that same spot. We get nice and comfortable, get in front of him. And now the blockers are getting so tall that it's just, to be honest, I just think it's a redundant way of looking at the game. So this one's called spread the block, or I also call it destabilization. I'll play the and I'll explain it. Okay, in the spread the block system, what I've just said there is that we're going to use, at least in the first instance, a fast tempo ball to the antenna. Okay, so normally speaking, a fast tempo ball to the outside, the blocker is jumping to the side and is not closing the line completely. Okay, and we use that ball in combination with a fast low ball in the middle. Okay, and the principle is, well, the theory is that as long as the attacker makes the first step and always stays ahead of the blocker who's too late, there will always be a gap in the block, and we know what that gap is. So for example, and we'll see that soon in video. On a tempo outside ball, we know that the opening is to the line because the blocker was too late to close the line. When we send that signal to the blocker and the blocker is now getting to the tempo ball outside on time, then we switch to using a fast middle ball. And then they're too late getting to the angle. Okay, so you'll see Ruben Penninger here is going to give an example, but we already know where the balls that the blocker will not be able to block, normally speaking. Okay, there's always exceptions. It's going to repeat this. So just stopping here. So Ruben, let's just say that this position from Ruben is the same always. He's always going to get to this position. And from here, he will accelerate to outside or he will accelerate to the middle. Okay, in this instance, he will accelerate outside and the blocker, that's Rick here, will be too late to seal the line, and Ruben knows that, and he'll bomb the line. So that's the tempo ball. He sends the same signal. He's going tempo, but right here, Ruben made the first step to the inside. So you can see that he's ahead of the blocker. So he knows the blocker will not be able to close the angle. So he knows he can bomb the angle, there'll be no blocker there. Okay. See how Rick was late, and Rick actually threw one hand, and at the end he knew he was too late. And this is an extension, and this is mostly only applicable to the right-handed player on the left side, in further increasing the destabilization and further increasing the distance that the blocker must move. We are using a back set. So now that Rick, who's the blocker here, he's already seen a fast ball from Ruben who banged at line. I know Ruben did it on the right side, but let's just say he did it on the left side. He ran a fast ball to the middle. Now Rick's like, now what? And now Ruben runs. And he already knows. Sorry. This is where I ask for your patience when I go back too far.
It's actually good to repeat them.
He already, as long as he takes the first step and continues to accelerate, Rick will always be one step behind. And Ruben knows that the line will be open. And what you don't really want in this system, and remember that there's exceptions, is to hit the ball back to where the block was coming from. Okay, so if I can just go back to here, sorry. So here, the big no-no in the first instance when you first run this attack is that Ruben will hit the ball back to the line here. That doesn't make any sense because he already knows the block is late. So you have to bang the ball angle. If you do this 2 or 3 times and now the blocker touches the ball or the blocker blocks you on that ball, then you know the blocker understands what's going on. And then you can change to another system. But for the players to understand this, you have to understand that you've made the blocker late and where is the gap. And don't hit back to where the blocker was coming from, but chipping back to where the blocker was coming from is perfect. Because if you watch Rick now, he throws himself to the angle. He knows he's got no chance. And there is clear daylight on the chip shot, which is here. I'll show you my cursor here. Because he's just jumping away from that. So right there, a chip shot to the line would be perfect, or banging to the angle. For example, here, a cut shot or a chip shot back to the angle here is also appropriate because Rick will never get it because he's jumping outside. Okay, and remember that when a blocker is blocking, is jumping this way, they're becoming smaller. When the blocker is jumping vertically, they're maximizing their height. So we're destabilizing the block, making it unpredictable for the block, but we're also making the block actually smaller. Okay. I think, yeah. Okay, so I'm just going to quickly recap this one. Tempo ball outside, send the signal that you're running to the antenna. The blocker's too late. Combine that with quickly running to the middle. If Ruben could also run a back set here, he's right-handed, makes it a little bit more difficult. He gave the demonstration from the left side, but actually he should have given the demonstration from the right side. He can also make the blocker here move through 6, even 7 meters if you really want to disturb the blocker, but then the execution of the set comes under pressure. Okay, so 3 was a tempo set outside, a fast ball in the middle, and a back set is part of the spread the block system.
Victor, can you repeat that again?
And not hitting to where the block came from, but shipping back to where the block came from is part of the system.
Can you just repeat the 3 different sets for those that are writing notes?
Yeah. So we had a tempo outside. Remember the position, the start position. Ruben tries to keep the same start position. Pass go to this position, so the blocker doesn't know what's going to happen. He executes all 3 of these attacks: tempo outside, short middle, and back, all from the same start position. He comes to here, he gets the blocker to be comfortable standing here, and then he busts his move. Okay? Tempo outside.
In the US.
And remember, the short middle should not be a high set, because otherwise the block has too much time to actually catch up to the attacker. It's quite a short set. Let's just watch the short set again. So it was about 1.5 meters, that set. And this is a tempo ball outside. This is quite difficult to execute, to be honest.
So for those coaches that are in the US system, that's either getting to your point of hesitation or point of preparation every single time to hit, is what Victor's kind of saying. That same locations, exactly, replicated.
Yes, and then you make the first step.
Mm-hmm.
You've got to make the first step. Otherwise, the block will be on time with you, and the sets cannot be high. Otherwise, you make the first step, and then the attacker has to wait for the set, and the block has time to arrive. Okay.
So I have a question there, Victor, from one of our. This particular system is more dependent on the setter's choice, right? Is the setter reading the blocker? It kind of looks like the sets are in 2 different places, but the hitter is verbally calling for a different location, or is he?
No, it goes like this. Sorry, it's verbal. So the setter does not decide this, because it's the attacker who knows what they want to do. It's the attacker that will make the first step. So the attacker is deciding this. Okay, and the attacker can call this verbally, but that means that the setter has very little time to prepare for what might happen. Okay, so actually, the spread the block system, strictly speaking, is used with a pre-call. Now, a pre-call, this is fascinating. It's not that easy, but it has very high potential, and it was used by, actually, I use it myself, but more successfully, I should say, was used by a Slack Shot, who finished bronze medal at the World Championships in Gstaad. It was a while ago now. But they were, I don't know if you can see me, but they would be lining up to receive the ball. And the first thing they would do, even before looking at the server, was they look at each other and they hold the call behind their back. So I hold my call, what I want, behind my back. And I look at the call from my partner. So only we know what we're running without giving a verbal signal. And I'm actually surprised that that it doesn't happen more in the beach game, to be honest. But it is difficult when you start to learn. I haven't actually had any teams use this on the world tour. We have trained it, and in the beginning, it's quite difficult because you have to say, what am I running, and what are they running? And for beach volleyballers that are used to just kind of pass set attack without having to think about too many things, it's quite a challenge. But strictly speaking, you agree before the serve is made which set you want, and you can do it verbally. So for example, I say, hey, tempo, or I say, hey, behind, or I give a signal behind my back. Okay. But there's more levels to this. The next level is that I will pass the ball to a location to force the blocker to move to that, and then I will run away from that location. If you serve me short to position 1, 2, 3, 4, position 4, okay? So the server, I know that the guy who's serving is blocking. I know that he has to travel from the serve, he has to run to the net, then I will make him run another 7 meters. So I look at who's serving the ball. It's the blocker. I'm going to pass the ball to a certain place on the court, get the blocker to move there, and then I'm going to run to completely the other side of the court. The Danish team, the team from Denmark did it. Soderberg and the Australians used it also. And I think Samuel Smedens also had started to use that system about running away from the serving to increase the distance that the block has to run. It's a mouthful, I get it, and I hope you can follow it. What you need to understand is maximal disruption and destabilization of a blocker, and I'll leave you the creativity or how you fill that in. I leave that to you. Please don't get bogged down in the details of how I explain it, but try to understand that the principle of the system is, it doesn't make sense to give the blocker enough time to stand right in front of you. Only if you have a physical advantage. So you say, well, I'm 2 meters 12. That's nearly 7 foot in the American system. I don't have to worry about all of that crap. Just set me the ball up and down. I'm just going to go over the block. That's your competitive advantage. But if the blocker is 2 meters 12 and you're 6'3", so the block is 7 foot, you're 6'3", are you going to give the blocker all that time to stand right in front of you? Then the blocker has the advantage. So this is about athletic, fast players who are not that tall, who can really make life miserable for a big blocker. Other questions?
I think we've got them all from that segment.
Okay.
Perfect. Moving on to the fourth and last one.
Last one. Wow, it's almost on time. It's incredible. The fourth one. So, and this is a bit of a trending theme. It's not new actually, but it's for most of the world it seems to be new now, and that's the on-two. It's called the on-two system. It's called the jump set system, and I call it the no block system, because actually, if you execute the on-two jump set system well, you never have a block. Okay, I'll explain it. Let me just play the video, and I'll try to talk as.
Aanvalsysteem, dit zie je niet vaak, maar het is wel tenminste een optie. Dat noem ik tenminste die tweeslagsysteem of no-block
system. The on-two system or the no-block system.
Want elke
it means that the pass is no longer a service pass, it's a setup.
Je paast de bal van de rechterkant
okay.
naar 3-4.
So what I'm saying here is that in the on-two system, the right side player is passing the ball to 3, 4. Okay, between 3 and 4. Okay, and that's where the left side player will make their attack or their jump set. And the reason is I'm passing it to there is because then their attack angle is longer. If I pass the ball to position 3, now if my partner's a beast, it's possible, no problem. But the attack distance is getting less. Okay. Remember that there's the on-to and the pass location. If you look at the way the Swedish guys are executing it now, they're throwing the ball all over the place. This is just the foundation of how you can start practicing the on-to system. Okay, increase the attack probability for the player by passing the ball further to the antenna. Okay, even on the antenna is also not a bad option. Anyway, right side player passes the ball to between 3 and 4. What I really love about this system is he makes a threat for attack. If there's no block, bomb it, bomb. If the block jumps, I turn my attack action into a set. And the set, because it's a jump set, you don't see a jump set going across 8 meters. Oh, sorry, this would be 7 meters, for example, or even 6 meters. The blocker is already in the air. I only need to set a jump set 2 meters away. Because a jump set, setting it cleanly on the beach, is not that easy. If you think you want to do a jump set and set it 5 or 6 meters, that's difficult. So all that's actually required is a jump set 2.5 meters. And in the basic level of executing the on-to system, just keep the set always the same distance from the attacker, 2.5 meters, for example, or maybe 3 meters. Now put your hand up if you've seen this before, and put your hand up if you've practiced this before. Is the outside hitter passing the ball to position 2-3? Let me think about that one. Oh, that's indoor volleyball. That's what we train non-stop, is passing to that spot. And a good pass is one where the setter has to jump set the ball and has all attacking options. So we're already programming our outside hitters to pass the ball to this spot. So I don't even need to reprogram the left side attacker who may have had a whole development cycle in indoor volleyball. Pass the ball to the same spot. And then the right side player is going to run in here, bang the ball if there's no blocker, or give a little setback. Shows the threat, attack. Just be, I'm just going to go back here, guys, sorry, because this is really interesting. And if you've watched the, now I can't hear you guys, but for those of you that might have caught on to it, as the right-handed player on the right side, my chest is facing the net. So the set is a side set. If you're a left-handed player on the right side, which to me is nirvana, I'm now coming to attack this way, and just giving a set with my shoulders perpendicular to the net, which is a normal, which you'd say a normal perfect situation for a setter indoor. But this requires, as a right-handed player on the right side, a side set action. Okay, and you also see it, the Swedish jump set as the right side guy is doing it as well. So it's a little bit different on the left side, unless you're left-handed. Side set, 2.5 meters. Okay, really important is that a part of the on-to system is that both players, after the pass is made, both players must be in the act of attacking, must be in the act of approaching. That's very different than I pass the ball and it's a beautiful pass and I know my partner can attack it and just watching. Because then the attention of the blocker is not split. They know that I'm not attacking. They know that my partner's attacking. So it's pass and go. When I'm teaching the system, pass and go. And it takes quite a while because mostly if it's a great pass that can be attacked on two, they just tend to watch it instead of saying, that's the moment that you need to run. You have two attackers in motion. Yeah, pass it. Go. Let's go back 10 seconds here. You see here that both players will be in. So he, on the right side, he was attacking and this guy was running. Okay, he needs to be running while this guy, before this guy actually leaves the ground. Then it's believable. Then you split the attention of the blocker and the blocker has to choose, and then you're destabilizing the blocker. And what that says there in Dutch is both players must be in their approach. Very confusing for the blocker. Yeah, Jasper was watching. Well, not a good example.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I know I can't hear you, but I know that there's coaches in there saying, what the hell is going on here? Because, check this out. This is a terrible example, and you can see that it's not the game that these guys have learned how to play it. They didn't end up using it structurally. Nice jump by Ruben, by the way, he's way up there. Is that he's using a jump set with a beach volleyball technique. Now, I don't want to go into the whole debate about the interpretation of hand setting in beach volleyball, but this is not how it should be executed. You should actually be using an indoor volleyball setter's technique because these hands slow the play down. Okay, so we're kind of busted here, but actually these hands should be high. In my opinion, it should be almost an indoor setting technique, not this thing. This is a hybrid jump beach set thing. Okay. And one more thing, sorry. For those of you that are alert, check this out. So we spoke earlier about destabilizing the block. Do not hit back to where the block is coming from. So Ruben sends a signal. I'm going to attack. The block is there. Okay. The block realizes now that Ruben cannot attack the ball because he's got two hands going towards the ball. He's going to set. So now the blocker is already on their way to Jasper. Okay. The blocker gets to about here. I hope you can see my cursor, which is the diagonal for Jasper, but it will never make it to the line. It's too far. And what Jasper does here for the show, not for functionality, is he hits the ball sharp angle back directly into the hands, actually, of the blocker who was too late to get to the line. So I'm even shooting at my own demonstration videos here, but anyway. See, it was a beautiful hit by Jasper, but that doesn't make sense. He did it as well. He should be hitting the line, but anyway. Okay, that was a whole monologue sitting here in my room talking to myself. Are there any questions?
I have one in terms of, I know you don't want to talk too much about the technique of setting with the indoor versus beach, but a little bit for those coaches and coaching athletes learning how to either jump and swing or jump and set. What does the foundations of the feet or the body or the cues of setting that you use and that you found successful?
I think if you start at the end and go backwards, is that, and I think this should happen in beach volleyball generally, is just as a setter, play the ball at height. So just if you're going to jump and cause threat, firstly, the threat is, make sure the threat is as high as you can get to the ball. So I'm running in and I'm like, I'm going to crush the ball. And that means my attacking arm, I think you guys can see me, I'll move back a little bit. My attacking arm is high. What's the point now of going, oh, I'll bring both hands back down to here. It just takes too long. I'm already there. Both hands together up high, bump. And that's what, that's where I see that actually indoor volleyball and beach volleyball should start to merge together, is the set technique here. If you understand what a setter's technique is in indoor volleyball, then please just apply that to this system. Is get up, contact the ball high, small action. You don't have to set the ball very far, and just forget about this deep thing. Okay, in this system. Okay, if you are going to set the ball through a long distance, the ball is inevitably going to spin, and unfortunately, most referees are still calling on spin, and it will probably be called for a double. So I would say use an indoor setter's technique, and I'm not talking about in my world. There's several different setting techniques. There's the setter who's responsible for giving the setup. There's that technique. There's the middle blocker who turns around after the block, and maybe you're using the libero as a setter. I don't know, but in the old days it was the middle guy would turn around and give a set, and normally they'd screw it up. Sorry for any middle blockers out there, but it's a fact. And that's not a very high action. That's a little bit more heading towards a normal setting technique. And then you have the deep dish beach volleyball set. So there's actually 3 different setting techniques. And then you add on top of that, in the on-2 system in beach volleyball, for the right-handed player who wants to show attacking threat, is a side set. But actually, that's happening in indoor anyway. Yeah, you're jumping up, you're too close to the net, you might have to set a little side set. But combining a traditional deeper beach volleyball set, which is what I call kiss the ball. So kiss the ball is here, generating power from the pushing action, so that we can make the referee happy. That doesn't work in the jump set system. It takes too long, and the blocker has more time to step out to the attacker if you do set the ball. So, answer to your question: apply what you understand about setters setting technique to the on-2 system, and that's perfect.
Awesome, thank you. We have another question there. What is your best advice for the blocker to defend this system? Straight reading and right? I think this is the most sought after question.
Yeah, I can only be honest. So in 2018, I was working in Australia. I had my Australian shirt on, Aussie. And Maria Faye and Taliqua, who won the silver medal in Tokyo, they became an on-2 team, right? And I was sparring partners with Louise Borden, and I knew exactly how this system works. This is the system how we go. And still, I'm like, I had no answer. Even I knew, I said, this is how we should be playing the game. And they were executing, and I'm like, I know how this works offensively and defensively. I just couldn't get my head around it. I know one thing for sure is that it doesn't make sense as a blocker to block a lane. And the reason is, let's just go quickly back, see if I can get a distance thing here. Sorry. I'll show you what I mean. because if you can see Ruben and here, is that if I block line on Ruben, yeah, and I also say I'm going to block line on Jasper, the distance between line block on Ruben and line block on Jasper is at least 2 meters more than if I block diagonal on Ruben and diagonal on Jasper. That's a big difference, especially if the set's only 3 meters. It means that I only have to move effectively at 3 meters. I only have to jump 1 meter, 1.5 meters approximately. If I block line here and line there, I have to go 5 meters. So my advice is, and this is what we started to do against the Swedish jump setters, was firstly bomb serves, but secondly it was just block diagonal, because then the distance, then you at least have a chance to land and at least throw something up on the diagonal of the attacker. All right. And the second thing is fake blocks. So you influence this guy. If this guy can actually see the blocker, remember that this system only works if the attacker can see if the blocker jumps or not. And that also asks a lot of the peripheral vision. But of course, peripheral vision is something that I'm sure everybody should be training in beach volleyball, so that you're making decisions based on what you see and not on what you hear, because light travels faster than sound. Yeah, so what was I saying? I've lost my train of thought. Blocking angle using a fake block. So I just do a little half jump to influence the setter to set the ball, and I skip out and block angle on 3 guy here. So that's Jasper. But I will say that the experience, yeah, especially, I mean, jump setters are the only ones that are pretty much using it now. Some of spends a little bit, is that if the pass is good and the jump setter can see the blocker, it's very difficult to defend and to block. So I would say block diagonal and use fake blocks. Fake block is put your hands up a little bit and then go out to the attacker. And the Brazilians had an interesting one when we played them in this hall when it was an indoor World Tour beach tournament. Once the guy just peeled, he just peeled to the diagonal, and actually they made some digs. They played 2 defenders because the blocker, they just couldn't get it. This was when the Australians, that's McHugh and Schumann, were using the jump set system. The blocker was not effective, and eventually he just started dropping onto the angle, peeling, and he was digging balls. So I think I was somewhere in that monologue.
One final question for me, Victor, and we haven't spent a lot of time on it. I don't want to spend too much, but understanding global language around locations on the net. You're talking even indoor zones transferring over. What are some of the nomenclatures that you've worked with for different set calling, different locations on the net? Types of sets. I mean, we were talking a little bit about calling, a play set before.
Yeah, I'm not really sure what your question is. So, so if we're talking about the spread the block system, you've got specific, so a 3 or a 4, whatever it is, it means I expect to set on a certain location at the net. Okay, so for example, you might split. So in the Netherlands, for example, we have outside, we have half, we have middle. Yeah. There are also teams that we're using 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So 1 is, and the 1 is for example, at position 4. A 2 set is halfway between position 3 and 4. A set number 3 is in the middle. A 4 is a behind set, and a 5 is a behind set that's further out. So that when I give my signal, the setter knows exactly on which point of the net they should be setting the ball. So they divide the net up into numbers. For example, So, I had a team that used colors, that used exactly the same thing. They had divided the net up into 6 zones. They just had colors, and they just practiced it so much that they would just say blue, red, green, and they knew exactly what it meant. So it's difficult to say that there's any standard nomenclature for that sort of thing.
You actually answered it in just that. Just some technical language for coaches who haven't really experienced like the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or moving that ball around to different destinations. Because really what you're looking at is that there's certain locations that's expected between the setter and the hitter versus it's always moving with them.
Yeah, and when you even just think that by saying we divide the net up into 4, 5, or 6 zones, a coach who's only been ever coaching, hey, the open the court system, which is just set the ball, just pass the ball in front, get us up and down set, and they're like, oh shit, there are other zones on the net. Hang on a minute, why? Oh, to move the blocker, to make the blocker uncomfortable. Oh, interesting. So, yeah, you can do what you want with it, but if you decide you want to start moving blockers around because the blockers are getting too big, yeah, then you're going to have to start finding a way to have names for your sets. Some of the teams in Holland, a lot of players play beach volleyball in the summer and indoor in the winter, and they just use their indoor calls. So they'll use a fast outside, they use a fast that's kind of a half fast, they'll use a quick middle. They just say, why should we reinvent the wheel?
Awesome.
Yeah, I just want to say one thing just before we wrap up. I just want to say one thing, and this is also a little bit about my own philosophy, is that in the youth, it's not really my intention as a coach to say this is how you must play in youth. In the youth age groups, I'm trying to give knowledge about the options and what's available and different styles, and to see what they pick up themselves. They might just say, well, we really like the jump sets, and they might be good at it. Or they'd use the spread, or they might use the open the court. I don't care. But I think it's my job is to give them the knowledge and let them make their own interpretation and let them develop those systems. But I always try to say, listen, it's a little bit like chess. Make sure you have knowledge of a certain number of offensive and defensive systems. And that way, what I call the rollaway, which is a basketball term, rollaway, is when I get stopped in one system and my defender gets a grip on how I'm playing, where I hit my sharp angle, when I hit my line shot, yeah, I roll to the next system. And then there's a delay effect until they get a grip on me again. And by the time they get a grip on my next system, so I've rolled to the chip system, the set or the match might be over, and I may have won, instead of just dying on that one option. And that is that's all I have, that's all I know, and I win or I lose. To me, that's not enough in beach volleyball. Try to give them the knowledge of these systems, practice at various times, practice them, become experts in all of them, actually. Okay, they're going to have a preference for one, and eventually, as they get older, you'll say, well, this is our game, this is how we will play. Fine. But in the youth, give them all the knowledge and let them make their own interpretation. And I also encourage the coaches too, who are listening to this, is to not say, well, Victor said that there are 4 and that's what it is. No, it's just a seed of thought. You put water on it and you make your own interpretation, and it gives you more options to be able to get the best out of the various individuals that you have in your program, because it's not one size fits all.
Awesome. Victor, thank you so much. Super insightful. And I know for the coaches here in the States, it's great to have a different perspective, and for all the coaches around the world. Want to thank everybody for staying tuned to us, and wishing you all the best in your collegiate season, in your junior beach seasons that are coming, back on the world tour, and those teams heading to Mexico, kicking off that world tour again. Thanks again to the AVCA, and we hopefully will see you next month in April for our next session. We'll send out some information as soon as we can confirm that. Thanks again, Victor, and for everybody.
Good luck, everybody. Thanks for joining in. See you next time.
Thanks, guys.
Bye-bye.